For the 2 and more years since 72 people lost their lives, Grenfell Tower has loomed over West London. First a blackened hulk, over time covered, but always a dreadful reminder of the disaster. Today, from the inquiry, came definitive answers about what happened that night and why.
It looks like they've done a good job, to be fair. And I think it's certainly a step in the right direction to ensure that justice is served. There's a lot on this that's...
Marcio Gomez is still digesting what is an emotional report for all the bereaved and survivors. Newsnight's followed his family's story from early on, after their dramatic escape from the 21st floor. He gave evidence to the inquiry, which also heard his harrowing 999 call as they tripped on bodies making their way down the smoke-filled staircase.
Don't give up.
You can't, come on.
Don't give up.
Come on, where's the fire brigade? Jesus!
They should be down.
The principal reason why the flames spread so rapidly up, down and around the building was the presence of the aluminium composite material rain screen panels with polyethylene cores, which acted as a source of fuel.
From the very beginning, the cladding put on Grenfell Tower when it was refurbished was blamed for the fire spreading. Crucially for the Grenfell families, Sir Martin Moore-Bick's first phase report says the building's external walls failed to comply with building regulations. Instead, they promoted the fire.
He pretty much said what everybody was thinking. And what the companies need to know is they can't put cost and profit ahead of people's well-being, people's lives, which is what happened in this scenario, and it's continuing to happen. They need to be held accountable for what they do. You know, if I was driving my car and I ran somebody over and I drove away, I'll probably be in prison for a number of years for manslaughter. What's the difference? If they know and knowingly know, accidents happen of course, but if they knowingly know that they've sold a defunct material, then they need to be prosecuted for it.
We first met Marcio and his wife Andrea in their hotel room surrounded by donations. What happened to them on the night sums up many of the fire brigade failings detailed in the report. Marcio's video of smoke seeping into their 21st floor flat was given as evidence to the inquiry. They called 999 several times and were told to stay put. The inquiry says more people would have survived if the fire service had changed that advice earlier.
You have hundreds of firefighters. You could have sent 2 by 2 up each floor earlier on, just one by the door, one knocking on each door, making sure everybody was coming out in an orderly fashion. Yes, it might have taken half an hour, maybe even a little bit longer, but that half an hour from 1:30 till 2 would have saved quite a few people, I would imagine. You know, from my own experience and my own 999 calls, you know, I was still getting told that the firefighters were coming up, you know, and not at one point did they say, you must leave right now because nobody's coming, which would have changed my thinking.
The London Fire Brigade is an institution at risk of not learning the lessons of the Grenfell Tower fire.
Today's report damns the London Fire Brigade as an institution that had no contingency plan for evacuation and hadn't prepared a response to a fire of this kind, though it praises the courage of those who risked their lives. The LFB Commissioner says she's disappointed at the criticism of individual firefighters and that the service will do things differently in future. Marcio Gomez believes, though it wasn't the LFB that put residents in what was an unprecedented fire, it's right they are scrutinised.
A lot of people are angry at firefighters and LFB, and as far as I'm concerned, they're quite right to be angry. I think a lot of the firefighters, not every single one, but a lot of the firefighters were very brave and courageous and went in and out of that building on numerous occasions, putting their own lives at risk. I think the hierarchy was the one that's probably difficult to swallow. For me, you know, if what comes out of this is that they get funding, they get new equipment, they get better training, surely that's a positive thing.
A number of improvements can be made both in the way in which high-rise residential buildings are designed, constructed, approved and managed, and in the way in which fire and rescue services respond to fires in such buildings.
This one was on the window ledge of my bedroom.
This family has shared with Newsnight so many stages in their lives since the fire, including this, unpacking what was left of their possessions from the tower. Their escape that night, descending through choking smoke, almost losing their daughters and each other, will never leave them. Today, the inquiry recommended all fire and rescue services carry smoke hoods to help evacuate residents. Amongst other extensive recommendations, a demand that the government draw up national guidelines on evacuating people from high-rise buildings and an essential call to remove cladding from other buildings.
I think it's important that whatever he's recommended gets implemented, right, sooner rather than later, because that will save lives in the future. But if everyone just reads the book and then files it, we haven't moved forward. You know, this is all waste of time.
For so many, this is personal, and every month they walk silently through the streets of West London to push for change and remember the dead. In its final pages, the inquiry report celebrates the lives of the 72 who died, the youngest of whom was the Gomez family's son-to-be, Logan, stillborn in hospital after their escape.
We do counselling, and that's helped. You know, the NHS have been fantastic with my family, and I'm sure with a lot of other families. You'll never forget. You know, the hurt is always going to be there. I still cry sometimes. You know, I still fall apart. But you just find a way to control it a little bit better, and then you place it in the right compartments in your own head. But this is something that will take years, if not our whole lives, to try and continue moving in the right direction.